the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Grothoff, along with my wife, Gina. Our goal is to give voice to the hidden mind of obsessive-compulsive disorder, better known as OCD. In this podcast, we're interviewing yet another person dealing with OCD either professionally or personally. So stay with us for this impactful conversation. We would love to have your comments or to have you as a guest, or if you wish to tell your OCD or anxiety story, please visit us at invisiblewheelchair.com. So let's find out more about who we're interviewing today. I am so excited today to be able to introduce you to Shahin Najak. Shahin is a certified mindfulness meditation coach for parents, teachers, and caregivers. Her passion lies in supporting adults and children, particularly parents and teenagers, in bringing back the joy and connection, building better relationships using mindfulness skills proven to increase self-esteem and self-acceptance. You don't need to sit on the floor to practice mindfulness. You can download Shahin's guide to 3 simple and effective mindfulness practices you can do anywhere, and you'll be able to find those on invisiblewheelchair.com under the interview resources page by her name. I'll have it linked there for you. Now, before we get to that interview, let's hear a word about our sponsor.
Today I'm here to talk about Q Science's sleep spray. Q Sciences has a number of different sprays. There's a melatonin sleep spray that contains melatonin, 5-HTP, and L-theanine. We've used other melatonin products to help our children with falling asleep. Melatonin is something that occurs naturally in our body that helps us quiet and calm down for sleep. And yet I really feel like I've seen a difference in the spray versus other products. Our youngest is here to talk about it. What things did you like better about the spray versus the other things?
I don't like the chew tablets because they leave like a weird taste, and they're mainly like they also have like you get bits in your teeth.
Okay, so Q Science's spray.
It's a lot better, I'd say. The taste is pretty decent and it works well.
Okay. I'm happy with the quality of these products and how they're helping our whole family. If you'd like to learn more,
simply go to qsciences.focusedhealthyfamily.com. That's the letter Q, sciences.focusedhealthyfamily.com, or visit invisiblewheelchair.com and find out more information there.
There are a lot of supplement products out there, yet you want one that's of good quality. Check out Q Sciences for your family.
And now let's get to that interview. So Shahin, thank you so much for being part of the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. I'm looking forward to talking with you today.
Thank you, Donald. I'm happy to be here. I love the name of your podcast. It's got so many layers to it. Yeah.
That's simplifying it, you know. So, of course, when I begin any interview like this, I always want to get a personal story, and I just, with you, I noticed you went from being an occupational hygienist to a mindfulness meditation teacher. How did that come about?
Isn't that crazy? So for for your listeners who don't know, an occupational hygienist is a person who works with occupational health and safety. So that's in the States, it would be the OSHA. In Canada, it would be the Occupational Health and Safety organization here. Yeah, it's, and I was doing that for a long time. Part of that job is how do chemicals and physical agents in the workplace affect your body? So I was always concerned with, you need to know how this is affecting your body and how to protect yourself and be kind to yourself, that when you aren't able to do the work, say it, right? So noise, asbestos, ergonomics, all of that was a part and parcel of it. I have 2 daughters. They're in their teens now. The older one's 21, so just slightly past her teens. I went through a divorce and it stumped me. And it was one of those things where I had to stop and take stock. And as I was kind of negotiating what to do, because then we moved to a different city. I'm here in Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. And as I was debating whether to, go back to occupational health and safety, or what do I do? I just thought, these girls, they need a coach. So I didn't have to, quote unquote, work for a living. I was later on in my life. I thought, okay, let me get into the life coaching business, because my kids right now need a parent, but they need a coach too. I had this thing in my head that I was going to coach them through their lives because they were getting older. As I was doing my coaching, I thought, I had a friend who had a daughter who was going through some challenges with anxiety and panic attacks and eating disorders. So all these parents in my life were going through these things with their sons and daughters. And I thought, there must be something in the teenage brain that we can zero in on and fix it, right? My job was to fix it. So, and then I started thinking back in my life, and I thought, what made me resilient? I was born in Uganda. We moved to Canada in 1972 during Idi Amin's time. And I thought, what made me resilient over those life changes? And I started thinking about the fact that my mom had always been a meditator, and she had modeled that for me. And that kind of was in my subconscious, it was there, sitting there. And I would meditate often with her. And so I started looking up meditation. And what I learned and the brain is just something that, if in my next life, I think I'll be a neuroscientist and a mindfulness person. But what happened is I really got into resiliency and the brain and mindfulness. I started putting those three pieces together. I thought, the mindfulness and the meditation, the contemplative practices, they really build that resilience in the brain. And like the cortex in the brain visibly thickens, and that amygdala at the back, the fight, flight, freeze system in the back of the brain there, the amygdala physically shrinks. And that's what the research showed. So I thought, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to teach my kids mindfulness. I'm going to fix it. Guess what happened? As I went through the various practices, I took so many courses on mindfulness. I did my certification in meditation. And as I started going through this, thinking that I was going to fix it, what happened is I noticed changes in myself. Things started shifting. All of a sudden, my relationship with my daughters started shifting. I started seeing them in a slightly different way. And one of my daughters both of them have some anxiety, and one of them has severe anxiety. And so she does get panic attacks. And how all of a sudden I was able to better manage. I was able to sit with her pain instead of having this desire to fix it or the aversion to stop it. I don't want to be here. So that's, in a nutshell, that's my story.
And you're sticking with it,
And I'm sticking with it. No more fixing.
So if you would, I consider myself doing some mindfulness work in what I do too, but I would love to know how you define mindfulness.
Yeah. So in the Pali language, mindfulness means awareness, right? So it's become such a buzzword in our world today. So I was listening, we've got some floods happening in Abbotsford here in BC, and I was listening to the fire chief, and he's like, well, we have to be mindful about this. And I thought, I wonder if there's actual depth to what does that mean, right? What does that mean in terms of a flood? What does that mean when we say we need to be mindful when we're eating or mindful when we're walking? So mindfulness for me, and I've taken, there's quite a few definitions. I like John Kabat-Zinn's definition, bringing awareness, and without judgment and with kindness. So I layer it. So being aware of this moment, this present moment, here I am with you right now. Being aware of this moment without judgment, without that brain, that inner dialogue, the inner critic saying, this is good, this is bad, or this is neutral, right? The pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, the feeling tones that come up. So without judgment, just sitting back, noticing. And then the other layer to that is with kindness. So bringing awareness of this moment to ourselves, bring it inside our body and have it without judgment, but then with kindness. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So when you work with a patient client, what is the practice of this look like? When you say, if I was to come to do a session, what would it look like? And then maybe we'll take it and see if we can do a little bit of it too.
Yeah. So with I run 8-week programs, I run 12-week programs, and they're different, right? Some of them are forgiveness based, some of them are with how to bring more compassion into your life. And some of them are about limiting beliefs. What are our limiting beliefs? How do we get underneath those? But the basic ones are, people usually come to me for 2 reasons. One is they want to build a meditation practice and they want to be more mindful in their daily lives. And a lot of people I work with are parents. Okay. And then the second type of person that comes to me is they're tired, they're overwhelmed, they have so much stress, and they have a very high anxiety. And a lot of the high anxiety people that come to me are parents and teenagers. So I work with both types. The person that comes to me that wants to build a daily meditation practice, we work through it saying, okay, what is the practice now? And can you attach just one small mindfulness practice? So can you practice the pause, that breath, to perhaps a habit that you already have? So if you already drink a cup of coffee in the morning, or if you fill your water bottle in the morning, or if you're walking to the microwave, can you build in one mindfulness practice? So taking a deep breath and letting it out. So just practicing the pause. And I often say that there's a misconception that with mindfulness and meditation, you need to sit on the cushion, right? So that's the formal part. And I try and say, okay, let's add the informal first. And then if you can sit for 90 seconds instead of 9 minutes, we can start stacking that during the day. And your brain, what you're really doing is training your brain, right? Just like you train a muscle in the gym, you're training your brain to say, this is a good moment to practice the pause. Because the reason for that is it does build resilience. It builds the emotional regulation in ourselves. So if I can give you an analogy, it would be like having a well of water, right? So you're just filling it up with a cup of water every day, a cup of water. Now, if you stopped that, and if the water got depleted, which is analogous to our energy, if our energy and our mindful capacity and our skills get depleted, if something happens in our lives that is shocking, it's, we're grief-stricken, anxiety takes over. When we go to that well of water, there's no water there to drink from. So with stacking our pauses during the day, it allows us to always go back in with water. I often, with this balloon is sitting here because I did it with some parents. It's like having an empty balloon, right? We wake up with a full balloon in the morning, and our energy gets depleted as we go during the day. And this is what we end up with. And this is how we meet our children and our partners at the end of the day, like an empty balloon, right? Okay. So with the breath, we're just filling it up as we go along. As it gets depleted, we fill it up. As it gets depleted, we fill it up. So it builds that we have that little bit of neck in the balloon to be able to deal with life's challenges. You know, the long Starbucks line or the flood. We have the life, we have the capacity and the ability, just that those moments where we're able to pause and go, okay, what do I need to do here? What's the next right thing to do? So that's a long answer to your question. No. But with people with anxiety, what I will often do is we try and get them to meet their edge a little bit, not unlike the ERP. Okay. And we also add a little bit of cognitive behavior. So we work with the vicious cycle. So I call it the vicious cycle, that, your thoughts take over or your feelings take over, and then it changes your behavior. We have the choice and the opportunity to step out of that. And how are we going to step out of that? And that's when the mindful practices come in.
So do you get involved with digging into the issues or digging into the feelings or the thoughts as far as like talking through it at all? Or is it just, how does that work?
We have a little bit of the story because people need to talk about it and we need to understand the basics. But we really go into, what does it feel like in the body? When you have this feeling, what does it feel like in the body? Are you able to just move into that feeling for just a few seconds? Are you able to meet that edge just a little bit? And how do we do that? We work with the mindfulness practice. Okay, so now can you imagine if you were able to use an anchor? And a lot of times the anchor is the breath. Sometimes it's sound meditation, but are you able to focus on that and then go back? So we oscillate back and forth. So are you able to breathe or listen to a sound as your anchor and then come back and meet that edge to the edge of the anxiety, and then come back in a little bit and then go back to the mindfulness practice. So we oscillate back and forth a little bit to see if we can increase our edge. It's like what they do with ERP is when people with OCD are afraid of heights, or, you take one staircase. Can you go just up one step or half a step?
Yeah. I would imagine, and this is a little off, but I would imagine it's hard to measure what getting somebody to a certain point, and how do they see it? Do they see their achievements? Or is that a hard thing to kind of come up with a measure for?
Yeah, it's people are so unique in their own ways. People start. It's not linear, right? People do well, and then something happens and then they come back again. The journaling aspect, because I say mindful journaling is really important, even in bullet points, or even it doesn't even have to be in a journal per se. It can be on Post-it notes, right? This is how I'm feeling right now during the day, and throw it in a jar that's on the kitchen counter, and then read through it when things are calm and say, okay, what did I go through here? So journaling, because we hold our feelings and our emotions in our body. And either through mindful movement, we need to get them out, right? Because otherwise they'll sit in our head with our thoughts, where they'll just keep storytelling and ruminating, and the anxiety and the worry sets in. But when we journal, we're actually physically allowing those feelings to come out of our hands and onto the paper. And so that, for me, that's how I see it, as a form of movement. So journaling really helps for them, for the individuals themselves, to see how they're doing.
That's interesting. Well, do you think we could try a little bit for the audience and kind of give them a feel of what it's like? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah. Okay. So let's do that. So this is a practice that I always talk about, and I'm sure you've heard of it. And I call it coming to my senses. For me, when I've gone through loss in my life, and when grief overtakes me or that panic overtakes me, for me, this practice works. And so let's offer it to your listeners, and perhaps they want to do it as they're listening. Okay, maybe not while driving, but let's. So yeah, you don't have to close your eyes, but just taking a deep breath in, maybe 3/4 full, so you're not stressing or straining yourself. Just allowing your body to breathe. Your body knows how to breathe. Yeah, and then gently opening your eyes, and just in the space that you're in, noticing 5 things that you see. Just noting. I see your face. I see my mic here. I see the trees outside. I see my sculpture here and some paper. Now, 4 things that you hear in your space. I hear a hum. I hear a car. I hear silence in the background. And I hear my voice. How about 3 things that you can feel? I feel my hands. I feel the smoothness of the table, the desk. And I can feel the sweater. About 2 things that you can smell. I smell my coffee. And I can smell some paint where I am because I'm having my house painted. But sometimes I can smell shampoo or oil and how about 1 thing you can taste? And if there's nothing that you can feel, that 1 thing you can imagine that you taste. About a piece of chocolate. There you go. All right. Okay. So that takes about 90 seconds to do. And when you're doing that, there's no stories. There was no stories in my head while I was doing that. I was present here with you. It stopped me from thinking, oh, wonder what Donna's going to ask me next, or wonder how I answered that question, right? Because these are the real things. What it also does, and Jill Bolte Taylor, if you've heard of her book, she writes in My Stroke of Insight. She's a neuroanatomist. I told you I was a brain person. Love the brain.
Yeah.
And she is a neuroanatomist, and there's a TED talk that she gives, and she talks about how she had a stroke and she was able to track. And she says that if we don't tell the story, if we don't have a story attached, like something happens, I don't call my brother, my sister, my daughter and talk about it, an emotion rises, peaks, and dissipates if you allow it to be there, if you let it sit there, right? And that all of that takes about 90 seconds.
Well, and I noticed you went from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And does this usually lead to meditation? Because I noticed it calming me into a place of like I could have probably gone into a meditative state or gone into or sleep, one of the two. I'm not sure, but is it so? You purposely went those numbers down? Is that?
Yeah, we work through those numbers, and then we just have a brief meditation, and then we talk about, okay, what was that like? How did that feel in the body? Because we want to take in the good. So many people come with stress and overwhelm, anxiety, severe anxiety, and that feels so crazy in the head and in the body. But this feels good. So we need to take in the good and really be able to nurture that good. It's like, here's another analogy for you. It's like if you're at a campfire, you can feel that warmth, right? Of warmth of the fire and how good that feels. And you take that in with the smell of the campfire and the heat. Well, you have to keep stoking it with firewood. So if you just let the fire burn for that few, whatever the hour or whatever, it would go away. But if you want it to last during your day, you have to keep stoking the fire. So the same thing happens with mindfulness. When you feel that feeling of, oh, I feel calm. What does that feel like? Where do you feel calm in your body? Can you hold it a little bit longer so that it gets integrated into the brain? That, yes, I remember that calm. This is where I can go.
Wow, very powerful. That was really powerful because it, like you said, it closed my mind off to like the chatter, and I don't think I even paid attention to anything that was going around me, other than looking at things or touching. I didn't, when I was touching, I wasn't paying attention to sound. When I was, so that was wonderful. So I guess this has been a wonderful conversation, and we could probably talk all day on this, I would imagine. How is it best that my audience, can find you? And I will remind you, I will have this up on the site too, on the invisiblewheelchair.com site too. But let us know different ways that they might be able to get to find out more about you.
Yeah, I'm not that great on social media, but I do have a website, and it's www.mindful-changes.com.
Okay.
So mindful-changes.com. And my Instagram is mindful changes the number 4 U, the letter U, mindful changes, number 4 U, the letter U. Yeah.
Cool.
You'll find me.
And I would imagine they can find some different things like we just did up there too.
Yeah. There's a few downloads on there. There's a free video on there for a 1-hour video on basic mindfulness and introduction. That's free. They can download it. There's actually a beautiful arts and crafts and games book for children that if you're a parent and you want to do some mindfulness activities for kids, then you can download that. That's free as well. And, as all things, if you download it, you'll be on my email list. And then I will send you, I won't bombard you. I don't do that. But yeah, I'll send you some notes, some things that I'm working on, or a practice that I love. Recently, I did a blog for medium.com called From Scattered to Centered, and how do we get there? And there's a meditation in there if you'd like to have a look at it. So a grounding meditation. Yeah.
Oh, some great stuff, great resources. So, well, Shahin, this has been wonderful, like I said, and I'm so much appreciate you being on here. So thank you for participating today and with all this wonderful information.
Thank you so much. As you said, I could talk about this for 24 hours. So, so you're getting off easy here.
This concludes this podcast. We hope you will subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, we would love your comments, or if you have a story to tell, we want to put it up on the podcast. Simply go to invisiblewheelchair.com to do that. Don't forget to like us on Facebook at Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest, we love guests. So simply go to invisiblewheelchair.com and contact us from there. Gina and I are here to help you or your family get to a better place naturally. Simply visit focusedhealthyfamily.com for more information. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Keep tapping and focusing forward for a better way.